And we're back. Johnny here. Today we're talking about mixing, and let's put on our mixing hat and see how we can make the most out of a new amazing song that you've composed. Now, if you're like me, once you get to this stage where you have something ready, you just want to get it out there. But let's take a step back here and see what we can do to make the most out of our new song. Now, there's a ton of materials to be looked at on YouTube, and I do recommend you go out there by all means and investigate like I have. But I'm just gonna lay out the 5 top things you can do to make your mix a lot better. So let's just jump in and look at compression first, right? So we got an example here of a song that I was working on. Let's just take a listen to a section. I'm not sure. Let's just jump in here.
I can feel it breaking and I can feel it sinking in. I got this feeling I cannot change.
Alright, so the first thing you might hear in there is that I actually got some effects in my voice. I got a little bit of reverb, but never mind that. What we're interested in here is in the compression aspect of it. So let's open our compressor, and you can see that our vocal track has a few transients in there. So these bad boys we want to get rid of, right? We don't want our vocal track to be all over the place, right? We want, so the main thing compression is going to do for us is going to level out when we're very quiet, and it's gonna dampen our track when we have these nasty peaks in here. So it's gonna make the whole thing a lot flatter, and that's gonna be really nice for us. So what I want you to look at is, look at this bar here, and it's gonna kick down whenever it's dampening out those transients. So let's just take a listen here.
I can feel it breaking and
so you see we got a nasty kind of pop happening there, and the compression takes care of that for us. So again, think of compression as a kind of a way to normalize your track. And we're not using it only for vocals, where although that's, you know, one place that it stands out a lot, but we're using it also for, you know, our guitars. The acoustic guitar is a really dynamic instrument, so whenever you got an acoustic, you really want to compress that shit. Make sure that regardless of how you're strumming it or how much attack you throw into it, you're getting that same kind of stable level. And speaking of attack, one parameter that's very important to me is the release. So this determines how quick the compression kicks in, right? So for instruments, I always have this very low. I want the attack to be there. So when I hit, right, I want that first percussive hit to be registered like 100%, and then after that I'm fine with it controlling and kind of curving my sound as needed. So that's kind of a quick kind of show of what I have. Again, we'll make like a whole video on compression because there's a lot to be learned there, but we're not gonna go too much deeper than that. Let's take a look at the second tip here, double track guitars. Now, this is something that might seem non-intuitive, why we would want to double our guitar tracks, but just think of it as we're trying to make our guitar sound more spatial, like just widen it a little bit, give it a stereo vibe. So what I have here is just a distorted guitar. Let's just see how that sounds. So you might have noticed that sounds pretty stereo, and what I have is actually 2 guitar tracks, one pan to the right, one pan to the left. One quick way you can go about doing this is you record one track and then you just copy paste it onto the left track. But actually what I like to do is add a little bit of variance in there. So what I do is I record one track using my bridge pickup solely. So this one. and then I go and record the same line using also my neck pickup, right? So just take a listen to that. So the difference might be very subtle and might be hard for you to tell, but let's just say I took this to the center again. I should really just type. See, there you go. So let's just say this is my original track, as if I recorded just a one track, right, without panning it to the right or left. Now, for some of you, depending on where you're listening, it might be instantly noticeable. It is for me. But yeah. It gives you that stereo vibe that you want in your distorted guitars. Definitely recommend you do it for all your distorted guitar tracks. Maybe not so much for clean guitars, but, you know, definitely distorted guitars. So next up is high and low pass. So EQ is a whole other video again, and we're not gonna do that right now. We're just gonna give you like a quick taste of what you might want to do. And one of the things you definitely want to do a lot of the times is just get rid of the noise in your mix. So a lot of the times you're not interested, for example, in the bottom end. So let's say you're recording a guitar part like this. So we're recording some fill-ins with electric guitar there. We're not interested in the low end of that, because a lot of it is just going to be rumble that the amplifier generates, right? So we want to cut that shit out. So what you do is you high pass that shit. So you get rid that. Them high passing means you only let the high frequencies get through, right? And low passing would be the opposite. So so for this specific one, we're actually getting rid of all the low end and all the high end, because those are kind of frequencies we're not interested in, and we're just getting the kind of the middle bit of the frequency range. But you might think, you know, there are other scenarios where, depending on your microphone, on what vocals you're going for, you're not interested, again, in kind of the very low end rumble that might be kind of just polluting your mix. And the same kind of goes for the high end. So the point here is just think a little bit what instrument that is. Are you interested in the high end? Are you interested in the low end? If the answer is not for either of those, just cut that shit, and you're gonna be reducing the overall amount of noise that you have, right? So you can see I'm bumping some mid frequencies here. Again, we're not gonna go into that. There's a whole world there to be learned, and I'm not an expert yet on that either. So we're gonna talk about that another day. But the next tip is find and remove nasty frequencies. So again, not going into too much detail, but let's just see why you might want to just kind of dampen some of the frequencies along the EQ. And I think the way I like to think about it is try to EQ in the source. So let's say you got a guitar sound, and you generally don't want to use EQ to fix or revamp your sound. All you want is to just use parametric EQ to just kind of eliminate any kind of offending frequency. So let's say you got, let's look back at our vocal track here. Let's say you got like kind of a nasal tone going on. You want to get rid of that shit, right? So the way to do that is you want to locate where that is more pronounced. So you would just grab one of these indicators here and just move it around until you hear that that nasal kind of aspect very accentuated, right? So once you find that sweet spot, you just want to dampen that down and make sure that that's not coming into the mix, right? So that can also happen for things like bass. For example, here my bass had some nasty mid frequencies which were actually overlapping with my vocals. So again, you always want to have your vocals sit nicely in the mix and be well heard throughout the whole song. Want to make sure that there's a nice bed for your vocals to sit in. So if you have a lot of things in the mid range, you know, it's possible that you get this nasty kind of overlap of a lot of things in the mid-range, and you want to avoid that. So again, this is kind of, you got to trust your ears in this, and there's no rule of thumb. This is going to be different from song to song, from person to person, but just something to keep in mind. So if there's something that's jumping in your ear saying, hey, this sounds nasty, try to locate that in the EQ and push it down. All right, so for our last tip, panning. So panning is a pretty powerful tool. I used to think, you know, why would I ever want to pan stuff? I just want everything as a block, right? No, that's positively not the case for a lot of things. What I do like to have as a block is my rhythm section. So let's just jump into a different project here. So I like to have my bass and drums in the center, right? And then the rest of the stuff can come either on top of it or kind of on the sides, just trying to fill as much space as I can, so that rather than having like a central block, I have like something akin to a wall of sound type situation, right? So here we have an example where in the end section we have like a big kind of chorus thing going on. Let's just take a quick listen. So you can hear quite a lot going on there. We got some acoustics, we got distortion guitar, we got bass, drums, and we got some keys thrown in, as well as some backing vocals. So how are we doing all this? The answer is we're using panning for a lot of this, just to kind of make sure we can differentiate all the different things going in there, right? So again, if everything was together in the center, you would have a hard time listening to the different backing vocals, the different fill-ins coming in. And instead what we have is our backing vocals, you know, one to the right and one to the left. So you get this kind of nice kind of symmetry of sounds coming in while you have the main vocals in the center. And then for our keys, we actually have them coming in the left. So all the while you have your mid kind of core here, and then in the left you got some fill-ins from piano coming in, as well as some backing vocals. So that just gives you a nice little idea. So perhaps if we had some fill-ins from an acoustic guitar, we could pop that into the right, and then all of a sudden you have piano here and guitar here, and you know, that's the kind of mindset you want to have in this. You want to just create like a wall of sound. Again, just try to fill in as much space and as much frequency as you can. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. These are, again, very basic kind of things you can apply regardless of what DAW you're using, regardless of what type of music you're producing. You can take these and apply straight away to your mix, and hopefully that will give you a better overall mix. That was me. That was Johnny. Thank you for sticking through this, and give me any comments, suggestions. Let's start a conversation in the comment section. And okay, peace out.